lot of questions and we have a lot of discussion with our participants around trying to change the perception of what's beneficial for the environment. And when it comes to environmental careers, what are the things that are really going to make a difference? And we recently done, this is part of a presentation we recently done for a group of business students, and it caused quite a bit of debate, and I think it's a worthwhile thing to talk about. Something we feel really strongly about is, as much as humanity and mankind is responsible for a lot of the destruction on our planet, humanity and mankind are also the ones who are going to be able to fix these problems. So, we are part of the ecosystem and we are part of the solution. So, if we look at this slide here, we've got a mining engineer and we've got Greta Thunberg. The knee-jerk reaction in terms of who can make a more positive impact on our planet, most people immediately put their hands up for Greta, and I tend to agree with that. She does. She's created amazing awareness, and she's a massive ambassador for climate change. But let's assume for a second that she gets what she wants and we move away from fossil fuels. And the whole world's driving electric cars. Where does the copper for the batteries in the electric cars come from? The lithium, all the other minerals we need, that's all going to need to come from mines. So in my opinion, what we really need are more mining engineers who are environmentally conscious, who are doing things in the right way. The reality is the computer you're working on is filled with minerals that have come out of the ground. So as much as something like, and I know it's difficult to even compare the two, but it's just changing that perception. If we get to a world where everybody's driving electric cars, we're no longer using fossil fuels, there's certain other sectors that are suddenly going to start growing, like mining for copper and lithium and things that go into these car batteries. So what we want to make sure is that sector is set up in such a way that it's actually environmentally friendly. So having environmentally conscious mining engineers, civil engineers is really, really important. And they are the people that are actually going to have a big impact. They are the people that can change the way we do business. Greta's creating a lot of awareness, but she's not creating a lot of change. We look at a similar sort of scenario. We've got a filmmaker and we've got a fossil fuel, a Greenpeace activist. And again, I really support the work that activists do. They've over the years, they've made a really positive impact on our planet. But if you look at the change and the awareness that's actually created, if you look at the creative industries, just think about something like the Blue Planet. I saw a statistic the other day of the amount of times the Blue Planet, that latest David Attenborough documentary on the ocean, had been downloaded in China, and it was running into the hundreds of millions. The awareness that he managed to create for these issues using using the creative arts, using film, around plastic pollution in the ocean, for instance, has had a massive, massive impact. And certainly in the world we're living in today with social media and the digital economy, being able to communicate science clearly, being able to inspire people around nature. The creative arts are really, that's where change is going to come from. Standing outside and protesting, yes, it has an impact, but the change is going to come from the people who can actually communicate these things to a far broader audience in a way that's actually meaningful for them. So I make the argument that a filmmaker is going to have a whole lot more positive impact on our planet, the right filmmaker, than, for instance, an activist. If we look at this next slide, so this is another one that's really tricky. We've got a fashion designer and we've got an ecologist. Ecologists do great work. What we know about species and how to conserve species all comes from ecologists and biologists and scientists doing incredible work. But the fashion industry is one of the dirtiest industries on the planet in terms of carbon emissions and climate change. Most people, if you take the example of Greta Thunberg, she doesn't want to fly in an airplane because of the carbon emissions. But what people don't realize is that the fashion industry has got carbon emissions almost 3 times higher than the airline industry. Creating clothes is an incredibly dirty industry. And if you were a fashion designer and you could come up with more sustainable ways of making clothing, using recycled materials for clothing, repurposing clothing, how you distribute clothing. I don't know the fashion industry well enough to know where the opportunities are, but I know that as an industry, it has a space with a lot of opportunity. And if you can be the innovator, the change maker, that's making the fashion industry move in a different direction, you're going to have a far, far more positive impact on the planet than a research scientist would, for example. This is another one that we had a lot of debate over. We've got a wildlife vet helping a rhino, and we've got a nature guide, somebody taking tourists around. And granted, the wildlife vet works crazy hours. They do incredible work, and I love what they do. But the reality is, they're helping one individual species. They're helping individual species, and it's important work. Whereas somebody like a tour guide, somebody in ecotourism, we're all involved in conservation and involved in the environment because we had this experience of nature that makes us love nature. And being able to take people from all walks of life, from cities, from businessmen, corporates, mining executives, being able to take them into nature and give them a direct experience of nature, let them understand how important and how valuable this is at all levels of what's important to humanity. You've got an opportunity there to change the impressions or the views and the opinions of thousands and thousands of people a year. Somebody involved in ecotourism or a nature guide who can take people out, interpret nature for them, get them enthusiastic about nature, can change thousands of people. The wildlife vet does really important work, but it's happening at a very small scale. So again, when we're talking change, I'm not saying that the work that a wildlife vet does is unimportant. What I'm saying is it's change in the future and how we view conservation and how the positive impact we can have on the planet. I think ecotourism has got a far, far bigger opportunity to change the way the world sees nature and the environment, simply because we can give people that direct experience. We can help educate them. Another one, a computer science and a marine biologist. I've got a couple of friends who are marine biologists, and one of their biggest needs is really good computer scientists who understand what they're doing, who can help interpret their data, who can write algorithms and statistics and numbers. And a lot of this is what underpins science. So a lot of your research, your typical science type disciplines are heavily reliant on a lot of other more technical disciplines which can make their work more effective. And then how do we interpret that data? How do we communicate that data? And the world of technology and science and computers and the internet is a really, really important supporting tool for your more traditional sciences. So again, when you start thinking, where can I have a big impact? If you're in that sort of space, in the technology space, in the computer coding space, there's massive opportunities there to make the world a better place. And this is all I want to really communicate to you, is that you need to just look at it a little bit differently, and where are the opportunities? The opportunities in the future for the environment are really going to be around human disciplines of agriculture and farming. How do we make that more efficient? How do we communicate science better? How do we reach more people and more children and educate people? How do we change typically destructive industries or dirty industries like mining or the fashion industry? How do we make them more sustainable? These are where the real opportunities lay in the future. And I believe that the world needs a lot more environmentally conscious bankers, a lot more environmentally conscious economists, a lot more environmentally conscious engineers. And this is where the future of conservation and the environment is going to head in. And this is where I believe the big opportunities are lying as well. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit in this space. As these industries start changing, for young people to actually be the change makers. So I think one of my messages today is really, we look at conservation, and it's typically in quite a small paradigm of the scientists and biologists and ecologists. And I think what we need to do is look at it broad as, where can you support the work that is coming out of that sort of research, the work that activists are doing and biologists are doing. How can their work actually be supported to translate into real world opportunities into the future? And I really do believe that's going to be around spaces of innovation in these different industries. So I hope that's given you a few things to think about, and it's really just about changing our perception. As much as man and what mankind's currently doing on the planet is usually destructive, man is also, humanity we've got the answers to these problems, and we're the only ones who can actually solve these problems.